Did you know that the biggest threats to the end of the world are not just earthquakes or wars, but also scientific advances that are spiraling out of human control? It seems impossible, but the very technology that promised us to save may be slowly destroying us. And here's a counterintuitive truth. The end times are not just a matter of if, but of when. What the Bible warned us about millennia ago is becoming a reality, and scientific evidence only confirms it. Do you want to know how to prepare, both spiritually and practically, to face these threats? Stay until the end of this video, because in addition to revealing truths that few have the courage to say, we will pray a powerful prayer to strengthen your faith and resilience. Subscribe now to the channel to continue receiving deep insights like this and activate your preparedness for challenging times. And don't forget, every second of this video can transform how you see the future. Asteroid impact. Imagine a colossal piece of rock, miles across, tearing through the sky and heading toward our planet. It looks like a movie scene, doesn't it? But the reality is that an asteroid impact is not science fiction. It has shaped the history of the Earth before. Remember the dinosaurs. They didn't have a mitigation plan. An asteroid of 5 kilometers or more hitting the planet would cause a mass extinction, altering ecosystems, climate, and even human survival. And while many prefer to ignore, the Bible warns us to be attentive to the signs of the times. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and terrible events, and great signs from heaven. Luke 21:11. Wouldn't it be wise to take these threats seriously? The probability of such an event is only 0.0013%, but let's face it, when the consequence involves the extinction of humanity, any percentage is no longer insignificant. God has given us the ability to develop science and technology as tools to care for creation. Isn't it curious that today we can monitor asteroids? This reflects the wisdom described at Proverbs 8:12. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and have knowledge and counsel. The tools we have, such as advanced telescopes and warning systems, are an example of how we can use God-given intelligence to prepare ourselves. Mitigation, however, is not just a matter of technology. It is also about joint action. The possibility of deflecting an asteroid using missiles or even altering its course with controlled impacts seems like the stuff of fiction, but it is on the radar of scientists. This human collaboration reflects the commandment to love our neighbors, because protecting future lives is a large-scale demonstration of compassion. After all, we are called to be faithful stewards of what God has entrusted to mankind. Genesis 2:15. In addition, this theme makes us reflect on our fragility and the greatness of the Creator. As it is written in Psalm 19:1, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the firmament proclaims the work of His hands." The vastness of the universe and the precision with which asteroids orbit remind us that nothing is beyond divine control, but that does not absolve us of the responsibility to act wisely and prudently. Finally, while the threat of an asteroid impact seems remote, it is a powerful reminder that life is fleeting and that we must be prepared for the unexpected. Just as the verses about Christ's return call for us to be vigilant, Matthew 24:44, these threats invite us to reflect on what we are doing today to ensure the safety of tomorrow. And speaking of tomorrow, don't forget that there are other silent forces that can also threaten our existence. Artificial intelligence. Imagine a technology so powerful that it decides its own future without needing human supervision. It's fascinating and scary at the same time, isn't it? Artificial intelligence, AI, in its most advanced form, can be both an incredible tool and an existential threat. The Bible reminds us of the importance of maintaining dominion over the works of our hands. And you gave them dominion over the works of your hands. You have put everything under His feet. Psalm 8:6. But what if what we create goes beyond that control? This is a real concern. While the probability of this happening ranges from 0 to 10%, the impact of uncontrolled AI would be devastating, affecting governance, the economy, and even human survival. To mitigate this threat, many experts discuss the need for ethical regulations that limit the irresponsible use of technology. This involves not only creating safe programming code, but also ensuring that AI is not used for destructive purposes. In Proverbs 14:12 we are warned, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death." Thus, it is imperative that governments and technology leaders seek wisdom to prevent the pursuit of innovation from leading us to collapse. For example, the creation of technology governance bodies could ensure that these tools are used responsibly and resiliently. Now, think about the practical possibilities of out-of-control AI. Imagine a military defense system that, powered by artificial intelligence, makes autonomous decisions, resulting in catastrophes such as nuclear war. Or, on the everyday level, an AI used to manipulate financial markets, causing a global economic collapse. The Bible warns us of the danger of putting our trust in what is flawed. Cursed is the man who trusts in men, who makes mortal flesh his strength. Jeremiah 17:5. Shouldn't we apply this warning to technology as well? However, we cannot ignore the benefits of AI when used correctly. Tools based on artificial intelligence already help in detecting pandemics, predicting climate change, and even translating the Bible into remote languages. In all of these things, we see how God can use even human innovation to accomplish His purposes. However, the question remains, how do we balance these advances with the risks? This requires constant vigilance, as Jesus taught us. Watch and pray lest you fall into temptation. Matthew 26:41. As humanity reflects on the power and danger of AI, it needs to consider who it is ultimately serving. How do we use what we create? And more importantly, how do we prevent creation from becoming the creator? This tension leads us to think of other destructive forces that are not only technological, but also deeply connected to our physical environment, such as the uncontrollable power of nature in a catastrophic volcanic eruption. Catastrophic volcanic eruption. Imagine the sky darkening for months, temperatures plummeting, and crops failing on a global scale. No, this is not an apocalyptic tale. This is what would happen in a catastrophic volcanic eruption. Supervolcanoes, like Yellowstone's, have the power to spew billions of tons of ash into the atmosphere, generating a volcanic winter that could lead to ecosystem collapse and even mass extinction. The Bible speaks of nature's impact on apocalyptic events, as in Joel 2:31. The sun will turn into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord. These phenomena remind us how small we are in the face of creation. Although the probability of such an event is only 0.00003%, science gives us tools to mitigate the damage. Monitoring active volcanoes with modern technologies such as seismic sensors and satellites is one way to predict eruptions and plan evacuations. This reflects the prudence described at Proverbs 22:3. The prudent one perceives danger and seeks refuge. The inexperienced one goes ahead and suffers the consequences. But the preparation is not only technological. Involving local communities in emergency plans can save lives. A practical example: educate families in volcanic regions on how to store food and water for times of crisis. The impact of a catastrophic eruption is not limited to the site. Volcanic ash can alter the global climate, affecting crops, causing famine, and increasing geopolitical tensions. This echoes the warning of Revelation 8:7, which speaks of the destruction of a part of the earth. The interconnectedness of the modern world makes any local disaster a global problem. How can we prepare for something so comprehensive? One step is to pressure leaders to prioritize environmental governance and climate resilience, remembering that good stewardship is a biblical principle, Luke 12:42. Interestingly, even in the midst of chaos, the Bible shows us that God can use natural events for his purposes. In Exodus 19:18, Mount Sinai smoked with the divine presence. Thus, even a supervolcano can be a call to recognize the power of the Creator and our dependence on him. As a society, we need to not only rely on technology, but also seek God's direction to meet such challenges wisely. As we delve deeper into the threats of nature, we are led to consider that not all catastrophes come from physical forces. Some are born of human choices, such as the risk of an ecological collapse that threatens to destructure the very basis of life on Earth. Ecological collapse. Think of a world where bees disappear, rivers dry up, and entire forests turn into deserts. It seems like a distant nightmare, but ecological collapse is already underway. This collapse happens when vital ecological chains become unbalanced, leading to habitat destruction, biodiversity loss, and direct impacts on human survival. Romans 8:22 reminds us, "We know that the whole creation groans as in labor pains until this present time. And this groan is a warning. Creation is suffering because of human negligence." While the exact likelihood of a total collapse is unknown, its signs are all around us: deforestation, pollution, and extreme climate change. Mitigation starts with environmental conservation. Governments need to implement global policies to protect biodiversity, and each of us has a role. A simple example? Reduce the use of single-use plastics. After all, stewardship of the earth is a biblical commandment. The Lord God put man in the Garden of Eden to take care of it and cultivate it. Genesis 2:15. When a species disappears, the impact is felt throughout the food chain. Without bees, for example, pollination of essential crops would be compromised, leading to mass starvation. In Ecclesiastes 3:19, we are reminded of the interconnectedness between humans and other living beings. The fate of man and beast is the same. As one dies, so the other dies. Protecting creation means protecting ourselves, and this requires urgent action such as restoring forests, creating protected areas, and encouraging sustainable agriculture. However, ecological collapse is not just a practical matter, it is also spiritual. When we destroy what God has created, we are disobeying his call to be responsible stewards. Isaiah 24:5-6 describes how human disobedience corrupts the earth. The earth is defiled by its inhabitants because they have transgressed the laws, violated the decrees, and broken the everlasting covenant. This verse invites us to reflect. Are we living in a way that glorifies the Creator, or are we exploiting his creation without considering the consequences? Given this reflection, we cannot ignore that an ecological collapse can trigger other crises, such as economic and political instability. When natural resources become scarce, global governance collapses, leading to chaos. And speaking of governance, this brings us to the next point. Global poor governance. Imagine a world where bad decisions, corruption, and selfish ambitions lead to the destruction of entire societies. Global bad governance is a threat that is quietly growing. Ineffective governments, military dictatorships, and authoritarian leaders create scenarios of civilizational collapse where injustice prevails and society loses its stability. Proverbs 29:2 reminds us, "When the righteous flourish, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan." The impact of corrupt leaders doesn't just affect their countries. It resonates globally, especially in such an interconnected world. History is replete with examples illustrating the dangers of bad governance. From the collapse of the Roman Empire, caused by weak leaders and mismanagement, To modern crises in corruption-ravaged nations, the pattern is clear. The lack of effective governance results in poverty, civil wars, and even global economic crises. How can we mitigate this threat? The Bible gives us a clue in 1 Timothy 2:1-2, "Pray and make intercessions and thanksgiving for all who exercise authority, so that we may live a quiet and peaceful life." Prayer, combined with active participation in society, is a powerful step. But it's not just about leaders. Government collapse often reflects a departure from divine values throughout society. When a people tolerates injustice or accepts systems that exploit the vulnerable, the decline accelerates. Micah 6:8 reminds us of what God requires. Practice justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Applying these principles can start in our communities, requiring transparency and accountability from our leaders. Poor governance can also trigger other disasters, such as wars and economic crises. For example, neglect of climate change by global leaders increases the risk of environmental catastrophes. When the human ego replaces divine wisdom, creation suffers. This problem is rooted in Proverbs 16:18. Pride comes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. This underscores the importance of humble leaders who seek the common good above personal interests. And if you think bad governance is dangerous, wait until you consider how it might pave the way for economic collapses of global proportions. After all, when financial systems collapse, instability spreads like a domino effect. Global economic collapse. Imagine waking up one day and finding that money has completely lost its value. The shelves are empty, the banks are closed, and the world is plunged into chaos. A global economic collapse is not just a distant nightmare. It is a real possibility, triggered by extreme financial crises, wars, or natural disasters. In Ecclesiastes 5:10, we are warned, "He who loves money will never have enough. He who loves riches will never be satisfied." Our over-reliance on fallible economic systems can lead us to collapse, and we need to be prepared. History gives us clear examples. The Great Depression in the 1930s caused mass unemployment and pushed nations to the brink. More recently, the 2008 crisis showed how interconnected financial markets can quickly collapse. To mitigate the impact of such collapses, we need economic stability and solid international agreements. Here comes the importance of good stewardship. As mentioned in Luke 16:10, "He who is faithful in a little is faithful also in much, and he who is dishonest in a little is also dishonest in a lot." Leaders must govern with prudence and justice to prevent such crises from escalating. The impact of an economic collapse goes beyond money. It affects lives. Civil wars, famine, and collective despair are direct consequences of failed economies. This highlights the importance of each person taking action locally to prepare. Have you ever thought about diversifying your sources of income or learning useful skills in times of crisis? Personal planning is also a form of resilience, and the Bible reinforces this in Proverbs 6:6-8 by inviting us to learn from the ant, which stores supplies in the summer for the winter. On the other hand, an economic collapse can be a reminder to re-evaluate our priorities. When financial systems fail, we are forced to reflect on what really matters. Matthew 6:19-20 counsels us, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but store up treasures in heaven." This teaching reminds us that no earthly crisis can destroy what is secure in God. And as we think about how human systems can fall apart, it's impossible to ignore the growing threats coming from Earth itself. Extreme climate change, for example, is a ticking time bomb that could further aggravate economic and social crises. Let's explore this scenario below. Extreme climate change. Imagine a world where devastating storms, deadly heat waves, and endless droughts become the norm. Extreme climate change is a reality that is already shaping life on the planet, and the worst may be yet to come. With global temperatures rising by up to 6 degrees Celsius, entire life cycles could be irreversibly altered. Romans 8:21-22 tells us about creation awaiting redemption, groaning because of human corruption. Isn't the climate crisis a reflection of this groaning? Although the probability of such a drastic increase in global temperature is estimated at 0.01%, the impacts are already visible. Polar melting, rising sea levels, and more frequent natural disasters are taking their toll. How to mitigate this? The transition to renewable energy and the reduction of CO2 emissions are essential steps. Here the concept of biblical stewardship applies again. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and keep it. Genesis 2:15. Caring for the environment is both a practical and a spiritual responsibility. The effects of climate change go beyond physical destruction. They also affect social and economic structures. Vulnerable communities are hardest hit, facing food shortages, mass displacements, and collapse in infrastructure. Remember when Joseph in Egypt stored grain during the years of plenty to cope with the years of famine. Genesis 41:34-36. This story teaches us the importance of strategic planning and resilience in times of abundance to face periods of crisis. The climate crisis also challenges us to rethink our priorities. Instead of exploiting the Earth's resources irresponsibly, we should seek a balance that preserves God's creation. As it is written in Leviticus 25:23-24, the land cannot be sold definitively, because the land is mine, and you are only strangers and pilgrims. In all the lands you possess, give the people the right of redemption. This principle reminds us that we are only temporary caretakers of this planet, called to leave it better than we found it. And as we face the consequences of our environmental choices, we also need to consider other existential threats that may arise, some of them created by our own hands, such as the destruction caused by conflict. After all, what happens when a nuclear war adds more chaos to an already fragile planet? Nuclear war. Imagine the sky filling with atomic mushrooms and the Earth plunged into a nuclear winter. This isn't just a dystopian movie setting, it is a real possibility, especially in times of geopolitical tensions. A nuclear war would have devastating effects, causing immediate destruction and leaving a lasting environmental and social impact. Revelation 6:4 describes, "And another horse came out, red, and to his rider was given the power to take peace from the earth and to make men kill one another." This verse reminds us of the dire consequences of unbridled conflict. The probability of a nuclear conflict may seem small, estimated at 0.05%, but the destruction would be immeasurable. Nuclear winter, resulting from soot released into the atmosphere, could reduce global temperatures, destroy crops, and starve millions. Mitigating this threat requires intense diplomatic efforts, such as disarmament and arms control treaties. These efforts reflect the biblical principle of seeking peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Matthew 5:9. We must act as ambassadors of peace in a divided world. In addition to the environmental effects, a nuclear war would destroy the infrastructure of entire nations, leaving vulnerable populations without access to food, water, or medical care. Remember Noah's care in building the ark, obeying God, and protecting his family. Genesis 6:14-21. This example inspires us to prepare for the unexpected. Supporting peace initiatives and talking about the impact of these weapons is a step we can all take. However, the nuclear threat is not just a political issue, it is also a moral issue. The mass destruction caused by these weapons goes against the call to love one's neighbor. In Mark 12:31, Jesus teaches us, "Love your neighbor as yourself." How can we justify the existence of something so destructive in a world where we are called to protect and preserve life? This reflection should lead us to demand responsibility from our leaders and ourselves. As daunting as it may be, the threat of nuclear war reminds us that the biggest battles are not always fought with visible weapons. Some come from invisible enemies, such as pandemics, which can spread quickly, causing similar chaos, but in an even more sneaky way. Global pandemic. Imagine a highly contagious and lethal virus spreading faster than we can contain. It's not hard to imagine, given what we've experienced recently, right? Pandemics have the potential to bring the world to a standstill, affecting lives, economies, and social structures in unimaginable ways. In Matthew 24:7, Jesus warned us, "There will be famines and epidemics in various places, and earthquakes in various places." History confirms this prophecy with the Black Death, the Spanish flu, and most recently, COVID-19. Although the probability of a new global pandemic is estimated at 0.001%, the consequences could be catastrophic. Diseases that spread rapidly can overwhelm health systems, causing widespread collapse. How can we mitigate this threat? Investing in epidemiological surveillance, vaccine development, and robust health systems is essential. In addition, the Bible teaches us about the importance of preparation and cooperation. At Proverbs 27:12 we read, "The prudent one sees the danger and takes precautions, but the inexperienced one goes ahead and suffers the consequences." Pandemics also expose global inequalities, showing how vulnerable communities are disproportionately affected. During COVID-19, we have seen the devastating impact on populations with limited access to medical care and infrastructure. This scenario calls us to action, as described in Isaiah 1:17. Learn to do good, seek justice, end oppression, fight for the rights of orphans, and defend the cause of widows. Helping those most in need in times of crisis is a reflection of Christ's love. In addition to the immediate response, pandemics challenge us to change our habits. Personal hygiene, healthy eating, and caring for the environment are practical ways to strengthen global resilience. In Leviticus 13:4-5, we see how God gave clear instructions for the isolation of sick people, showing the value of preventive measures. Learning from these principles can save lives both on a personal and global level. Finally, pandemics remind us that the greatest danger is not always visible. Just as diseases can arise unexpectedly, other invisible threats, such as those of synthetic biology, also pose significant risks to humanity. Synthetic biology. Imagine a laboratory where scientists create artificial organisms, manipulating life like pieces of a puzzle. Fascinating? Undoubtedly, but also incredibly dangerous. Synthetic biology carries immense potential for good, such as cures for incurable diseases, but it also carries the possibility of creating devastating pandemics or unbalancing the ecosystem. At Genesis 1:31, we read, "And God saw all that he had made, and it had turned out very well." Reckless manipulation of what God has created can have dire consequences. The probability of a catastrophe caused by synthetic biology is estimated at 0. It's up to 1%, but just as we have seen with natural pandemics, to underestimate it would be unwise. Without strict regulation, genetic experiments can spiral out of control, releasing organisms that we cannot contain. The book of Proverbs gives us a clear warning. There is a way that seems right to a man, but the end of it is the ways of death. Proverbs 14:12. This reminds us that not all innovation is good, and that wisdom and ethics should be the pillars of science. On the other hand, synthetic biology has the potential to cure diseases, create sustainable food, and combat climate change. However, with great power comes great responsibility. Scientific and political leaders need to work together to set clear boundaries, ensuring that these technologies are used for good. The Bible invites us to pray for wisdom for our leaders. Ask for wisdom, and it will be given to you. James 1:5. This principle applies here more than ever. Imagine the impact of an error in synthetic biology, an organism designed to destroy agricultural pests, but which ends up wiping out entire crops, or a disease developed for research that leaks out to the public. These scenarios are reminders of how vulnerable humanity can be to its own creation, just as in Genesis 11, when men tried to build the Tower of Babel and ignored the limits imposed by God. Synthetic biology challenges us to recognize our position of humility before the Creator. And while synthetic biology poses a significant risk, there is another emerging technology that, although smaller in size, carries a gigantic impact: nanotechnology. Let's explore the power and dangers of the world's smallest machines in the next point: nanotechnology. Imagine microscopic machines, smaller than a human cell, capable of building, repairing, or destroying with unimaginable precision. Nanotechnology is a scientific revolution that promises to transform areas such as medicine, energy, and communication, but it also brings frightening dangers. Ecclesiastes 1:9 reminds us, "What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun." Even when we pursue innovations, we need to recognize the risks that come with them. The probability of nanotechnology-based weapons causing mass destruction is estimated at 0.01%. Although it seems small, the impact would be devastating. Imagine nanorobots programmed to disintegrate materials, getting into the wrong hands or multiplying wildly. Without ethical regulation and strict control, this technology could become an existential threat. Proverbs 16:18 warns, "Pride comes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." This warning is relevant for those who develop such powerful technologies. On the other hand, nanotechnology can also be used for good. Imagine nanorobots eliminating cancer cells without affecting healthy tissues, or self-cleaning materials that drastically reduce waste. These advances reflect the commandment to care for others. The Bible says, "Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all." Galatians 6:10. This principle inspires us to seek applications that benefit humanity without ignoring the potential harms. Now think about the economic and military impact of nanotechnology. An arms race based on this technology could destabilize entire nations, increasing global tensions. This reminds us of Romans 14:19. "Let us, therefore, strive to promote everything that leads to peace and upbuilding one another." Promoting peace requires a responsible approach to the use of new technologies, something that leaders and citizens must demand. And while we explore the threats of the world's smallest machines, we can't ignore that there are even more unpredictable events that can arise. Unknown causes, often combining known and unexpected factors, are the next step in our journey through the possible reasons for the end of the world. Unknown causes. What if the danger doesn't come from something we can predict or control? The unknown causes for the end of the world remind us that no matter how much we advance in science and technology, there are still forces beyond our comprehension. The Bible warns us in Matthew 24:36, "As for the day and the hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven or the Son, but only the Father." This uncertainty is a call to humility and vigilance. Unpredictable events, such as unexpected cosmic collisions or the emergence of as yet unknown natural phenomena, could completely destabilize the planet. In addition, interactions between known factors, such as pandemics, economic collapses, and climate change, can trigger a devastating domino effect. At Ecclesiastes 8:7, it is written, Since no one knows what is to come, who can say what it will be like? This reflection challenges us to think about what we are doing to increase global resilience. To mitigate these threats, investment in scientific research is essential. But preparation is not limited to technological advances. It also includes strengthening communities and cultivating values that promote cooperation and resilience. Proverbs 27:17 reminds us, just as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens his companion. In times of uncertainty, working together is crucial to tackle unpredictable challenges. These unknown risks also lead us to reflect on our relationship with God and His creation. Are we relying too heavily on technology, or are we seeking divine guidance to navigate through an uncertain future? Isaiah 55:8-9 teaches us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways." It reminds us that while we can prepare, only God has control over the ultimate destination. And as we wrap up this journey through the threats that surround humanity, a fundamental question arises. How can we balance science, faith, and action to protect what has been entrusted to us? This is the ongoing challenge we face, and the answer lies as much in the wisdom we seek as in the faith we practice. Now that you know the 12 reasons that can lead to the end of the world, it's time to reflect. How are you preparing? Are you living with purpose, building your life on eternal and unshakable values? Remember, it's not just about understanding the dangers, but about acting with wisdom, faith, and courage. As the Bible teaches us, therefore be on the watch, for you know neither the day nor the hour. Matthew 25:13. I challenge you to make a decision today. Start living intentionally, empowered by divine wisdom, and prepared for whatever comes. And before finishing, leave your comment below. Which of these threats impacted you the most? Let's talk about how to face this together. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos, where we will continue to explore deep and relevant topics. And now, as promised, let us pray together a special prayer to seek protection, discernment, and peace in times of uncertainty. Close your eyes and pray with me.